like a
He's
white one. Yeah, which is
always absolutely beautiful.
yeah, and
Let's take a picture of, can I take a picture of him and you on the screen?
of course you may. I know I owe you a photograph. Yeah.
Do.
Who's this? Who's this up here? Look, 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 look.
Oh,
Ghost, ghost.
hey.
Hey.
Oh, he's
he's
absolutely beautiful. How old is he now?
so he's not quite 5 months. There you go. Off you go.
Oh.
Place.
Is he the same breed as your older dog?
So my older dog was a Labrador, and I wanted to get one that was a bit different because I didn't just want to replace the
No, no.
because he meant so much. So yeah, a Belgian Shepherd. Um, but it's great having a new puppy in the house and learning to communicate with a whole new different kind of being
Oh,
who takes lots of different signals is fantastic.
oh, it's beautiful. Really lovely. So please send me a photograph of you. Well, unless I use that one, I don't know what the quality will be like or what I just took.
Oh, I will definitely do one for you. As you heard when you did the session with the team last week, I was not a well chap, so I've
No.
just got a bit more colour back to my cheeks at the moment.
Oh gosh. Yes, no, that was, but anyway, I'm so glad that you did make it in to be there. It was important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And how did you find the session?
I loved it. I just think they're such characters, they're so different, aren't they? The people. Just such a variety. I mean, I obviously experienced that meeting them one on one. I mean, who was the first person I spoke to? Was it Joshua? I was like, whoa. And he gave no free information whatsoever. I was thinking, oh,
Jason, that would
Jason,
have
I should
been
say, yeah, Jason.
Jason.
I
Yes,
thought, oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God, if they're all like this is going to be hard work.
Jason is a really interesting character, one that I struggle to get to come out of himself because you can ask him an open question and he'll just sit there in silence, perfectly comfortable.
Yes.
And my struggle with that has been how do I not become uncomfortable and respond in a negative way to
Yeah,
something clearly just his preference,
exactly.
you
Oh,
know? And yes.
I think I said to him at one point, I said, so you have to, part of your role is to influence people, with the information you're giving. You went, no, I'll give the information. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, well, there's a minefield there, but nevertheless, I won't go there.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some super strengths, but one of the things that I'm not even sure if he's in conscious incompetence yet. I'm not even sure that he's actually realised the scale of the blind spot. I describe it when we talk about our talent sessions at work. Describe it, his bedside manner, like a doctor, is really needs some work.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, well, you come to me on my terms. This is my way of communicating. End of. But actually, on the day, I thought he was more open, and I think he volunteered a contribution without me asking him. So, but yeah, he was the first one I spoke to on the one. Oh, bloody hell! And then towards the end, I had Joe, who's a character, isn't he? I mean, he was.
oh yes,
But I
yeah. But
thought
you had such fun with him, and he went along with it as well.
he
You
did,
know,
yeah.
and yeah, yeah.
He did. I thought, oh, you just got, he's a key character there. So I thought, need to play to this somehow. So, um, no, they were just, and then you've got a Niels, he's a bit like a puppy dog, isn't he? It's like, in his desire to learn. Oh, it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
You've picked on the three of the gentlemen in the mix. What about the
The
ladies?
ladies, oh, they were incredible. I mean, there was Kate, and I don't think I kind of drew on her so much on the day, and I wished I had a bit more. But I thought there were some people I needed just to make sure on side, were involved. They were marvelous. I mean, I could think of all the names, but no, they were absolutely wonderful and just open to learning. And then there was what's her name, Celine,
Yeah.
who I thought, yeah, she was using all the terms I use in our one-on-one. I thought, crikey, she's into this stuff already, sort of thing.
She's one of these people that you give her a book and an opportunity to learn, and she's on it. She wants to very much learn. And what's been fascinating for me to see, and I'm trying to play my role to correct it, is in a heavily led US focused organization, top tier stacking in cultural fit is Americans, clearly. Second is English, because we have that so-called special relationship. And then there are those that they find incredibly difficult to get some cultural overlap with. And the French style is one that they find particularly difficult. So when you look at Celine and what she's managing on a day-to-day basis and the feedback we get from her team and the surveys and everything, she's a rock star.
Absolutely.
But the doors haven't been opened because there's not a willingness from a cultural perspective above a certain level in an organization.
And she's got some interesting thinking about cultural differences, that she's got quite a sort of definite view about this, this country, these people have got this culture, and I sort of broached it like everybody's got a culture. There are trends in countries, but everybody's individual, rather than think of them like this mass block. But she talks in those terms, this block of people are this way. And I think, oh, right, okay. So, and she used the word culture often in our conversation.
Yes, she's very passionate about it. I think maybe it comes from the quality kind of operational side of things, but she's got a very strong bias towards defining a box and then everything goes into those boxes. And migration from one box to another, or not quite being in a box, is not something that sits naturally with her.
And therefore she'd experience that from other people. It's like, if you think that, that's what you get, basically. So but those conversations, I'm so glad I had those conversations with them, because they shaped what I did on the day. Just totally, really, totally. And I decided not to emphasize the title challenging conversations, because I thought, well, it's a problem stage, let's go for
excellent. I love that. Yeah.
And that's going to be, because I sensed some resistance to that when I was talking to them one-on-one anyway. It's like, it would be other people who have the challenging conversations, or well, we don't, there's a little bit of Nick's got to be in his bonnet about this sort of thing, but it's only those two who don't talk to each other or whatever. So, and I thought, yeah, it is problem state, so let's go for something that encompasses it.
I liked it. Yeah. It put people at ease, and then they felt intrigued and curious rather than it being a pointed criticism.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I thought, so many things, really. But I thought what was interesting was, having broached this whole area of feedback, and they're talking to each other about excellence, and and they know indirectly it's about how do we kind of improve the way that we relate to each other, but be open to what we hear. And then, I know it's your system in the company, but when Michelle suggested we had anonymous feedback, I went, no. It's just like, talk about, you do all the knitting and then somebody comes and pulls the thread.
I know, but the corporate world can, in stealth, just condition you that things are correct if you do them in this way.
I know.
And there's so many regulations and legal considerations and all of and HR that actually, it's one of the actual bees in my bonnet is we end up tending towards the lowest risk common denominator of approach rather than the most effective approach.
Yeah. Yes.
So I like the fact that you pushed back. I don't think they'll have a problem in putting their
No.
feet forward.
Well, I thought, if they, I mean, they can do it to me and Chandler individually, they can send on
Yeah,
whether, and
yeah.
I can say, look, if you want this to stay anonymous from the companies, but I can do that. But you can tell me anything, I mean, you could tell me it was a shit awful session if you like, and I'll take it and I'll learn from it. Because I thought it's really important to be the example of that, that to give them that
I
freedom.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when actually the root of what you were bringing us through was the actual item itself is not the issue. It's the seeking to understand it better, and that has to be attached to a person because there's so much about the thing that is a consequence of that individual's feelings and filters and preferences.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'll be great. I got a hunch that we'll probably want to do more with you.
I hope so. Because this is one thing I wanted to talk to you about, whether you would think about following up individually with people, because there's some that would be, I think, just really want to take it forward and just to explore those options, but with you first of all, rather than it being this sheep dip, just like, oh, we've dipped a minute and that's
I
you,
I think
how
you're
do you feel about
absolutely spot on because there will be elements of this where I think we can use it as a great glue for the team because
it?
there's a real shared experience in doing some learnings together.
Yes.
But you're quite right. There will be individuals that are at very different stages, some who have a true interest, and
Yes.
some that have an interest because their boss Nick said you should have an interest, and it'll
Yeah.
have a different feel to it. Um,
And some who
I
don't have
really,
interest, who don't like, Joe would go, like Joe's got seen it, heard it before, you think, yeah, I know you have, but you might not be putting it all into practice, but that's another matter.
Joe and Jason are my. If I describe this as being a parent, and that's often how I feel about my teams at work, I there's many similar emotions that come out when I look after them and kind of care for them. Joe and Jason would be my kind of like my special children that require just a little different handling, and they share something in common, and I don't think they both appreciate it. They were both given coaches from YSC, so very very capable professional coaches. They did one turn of 6 months with their coaches, and then their feedback to me with the coach was, okay, I've now experienced what it is to be coached, so now I can tell people that they should have coaches, but I didn't really learn anything new, so I don't want to take it on. And and then I had a one-to-one with each of their coaches, and these poor ladies were kind of like heads in their hands going, I've tried every trick in the book and I just can't get them to open up or even see their blind spots. So it's been a very interesting path with those two
Well, I
individuals.
think it was particularly because of Joe. I mean, I think provocative works with those two. Certainly works with Joe. Provocative coaching. You've got to go sort of get him. I mean, it was partly why I did that kind of quirky thing at the end, the spelling, because I thought you've got to get him somehow. You've got to get them where they can't do something. That's so seemingly simple to illustrate a point, and it's kind of comes from it comes at them from the side. They wouldn't expect that sort of thing. So, but they shaped, I mean, the whole thing about clean questions came from them because once somebody said to me, "Oh, I've given this person feedback," and I said, "What did you tell them?" They said, "I've told them we're patronising." I thought, well, no specific behavioural description here of what patronising means, and nor did the person ask any questions about it. So you think they may, in some cases, give feedback but the presence of questions is low, you know, about clarifying what's being said. So everything, those one-on-ones were precious. They really were, absolutely.
I'm so how would you suggest we kind of take it forward as next steps then, Sue?
Well, I think either you or me to write them and say, I'd love some feedback. I just like to know, you know, what you thought of it and what you got out of it. Have you done anything with it? That sort of thing. Um, and, you know, would you like to pursue this and recognize people? Some people will and some people won't. So I think, and for them to know that they can say anything to me, you know, that's important. I think that they can tell me anything. You know, I could even prompt that. So
If I may, I think in order that the hierarchical norms in businesses don't kind of overrule it, I think an email directly from you to them without me on copy
okay.
probably have that ring of truth to it.
Well, I could draft something and send it to you and see what you think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Before I do that, though, what did you learn from the session?
I was reminded just how incredible your Jedi skills are in real time. That was always going to happen, and
What,
I
okay, here you go.
enjoyed
In what way
watching.
specifically?
In what way specifically? I could see you adjusting your words, your phrasings as you went from person to person in the group.
Right.
So I could tell that you were being provocative deliberately with Joe, and I could tell with some others you were being more patient and allowing them to get the aha moment. So that was
Right.
very observationally for me, sitting in the room and having been taught by you before, that was interesting to see. We've already spoken about your call to move it away from the problem statement.
Yes.
That was a really good learning to me, because I would still bias towards courageously calling out the problem statement and then trying to get curious about it. So that's given me something to think about as well. And
Just to say something about that, because that really, um, you've described some of the reasons why to do that. You know, it's partly about the building rapport, them with each other, me and
mhm,
Chandra, them. Um, oh, it's also what was I going to say? It's also about ties in with the logical levels, which is why I put that there about, you know, don't address an issue head on, address it from another level that encompasses that. You know, the temptation can be, we have this problem, let's talk about the problem and let's look at, you know, what we can do about it. But you're dealing with, we don't solve an issue with the same, at the same level or with the same thinking that generates the issue in the first place. So it's like how to do something that's going to have an influence on it. So that was another reason. That was why I introduced the logical levels as well.
yeah.
And what else for you?
Yeah, maybe we come back to that one a bit later on, because I'm interested to kind of maybe personally understand how I do that better. And then
Okay.
the final piece that I enjoyed seeing was something that resonates with me personally, is learning and continuous improvement doesn't have to be dull. You can have a heck of a lot of fun doing
Absolutely.
it, and humor is such a great salve and motivator. I try to do that naturally, just kind of within my style, and bring a light-hearted nature to things. And it was very nice to see you bring that warmth. I think it reminds me of the phrase that if you're having difficulty with somebody, ask them to do you a favor, because
Yes.
if they did, that kind of
Yes.
piece. And it was lovely to see the humor, for me, moves on to warmth, moves on to connectedness. Because if you could all laugh together,
Absolutely.
then what can't you do together and overcome?
Exactly. Yes. And then you can laugh at yourself. And that's such a huge thing then, for people to be able to, which hence, that's the source of the provocative, to get people to laugh at themselves.
Well,
Because then
you saw what I did with the video camera piece. And my predecessor would have kind of gone, oh, goodness, yeah, I've got my video camera working, and that would have been all he said. I agree with you. I'm quite happy to make fun of myself.
yeah,
I think they enjoyed that.
absolutely. But what's it, the little plastic slidey thing?
Little plastic slidey thing that I still couldn't see without my glasses.
Oh, dearie me.
And maybe I know we're focusing on this one on the kind of like the team and maybe what the structure should be. I'd like to come back with you at some point, if I may, and look at these logical levels
Yes.
and really do a bit more of a deeper dive in how I get practiced at going up
Yes.
the chain. I've been struggling recently with Jason to try and get well, what's actually behind what you're saying. And most recently, he said, "So I'm looking at a job offer from another organisation, and I may go." And I found it incredibly difficult. I think I've had to make some educated guesses. Um, I wasn't able to take it up a notch to really get to the why for him.
No.
I think that's me just not being able to pivot my style to match him. He's quite a different preference style than me, so
Yes.
I'd like to understand how I do that better.
Yeah. Yeah. Might come back to what you said before, do me a favor, ask him for your benefit to explain why that you're learning for the future.
Yes, in
I think he's like, he doesn't like talking about self. He might talk about other. Um,
third person. I was baffled with some things with him recently that have kind of like just caught me out, and it's worthy of its whole session because I'd love to try and solve for it.
would you like to try to, or would you like to solve it?
Oh, good call out, Sue. I'd like to solve it,
Oh, good.
and I'm sure I can with your help.
I'm sure you can too. I noticed the word popped up just a couple of times today.
Thank you for calling me out on that. I need
You're welcome.
constant watch. Recently, when he shared this with me, a previous conversation was, "Hey Jason, when we get the opportunity, it would be really great to have a talk about your career planning because you're seen as somebody that could take over from me one day. Um, so it would be great to know if that's something you're interested in, and then let's have a talk." And he said the weirdest thing to me I've ever heard in a kind of like a one-to-one development talk. He said, "I can't tell you now whether I want your job, and I probably won't be able to tell you in 6 months." And then he just shut down. And I was like, I don't know where to go next on the conversation. So I let him go away on vacation
Not
thinking,
not like what stops you or what has to happen for you to be able to tell me.
and then the first thing he did after the session with you with the teams, he said, "Hey, have you got 2 minutes?" And he came and he said, "Look, I want you to know that I'm looking at another opportunity." Now we've taken that conversation on further, and I think he may well choose to stay because, as with many big organizations, there are plans for the future that individuals don't know until they need to know. So I brought up his timeline so that he could get some view on what we were thinking about doing. So he may well stay. But if he does stay, I need to do it to have a much better tool set to understand what's driving him because I think if his professional coach, all of his colleagues, his team, and me cannot get him to see his blind spot, he's going to be in trouble.
Well, I think just as an observation is that you're getting him to see his blind spot. So you're coming at it from the problem point of view.
Yeah.
As opposed to what's his excellence and how does he build on that?
He's got so much.
I mean, you don't have to answer that to me now, but that's a very different tack to what's the blind spot.
Yeah, and you can see from my eyes that you put me right back into myself thinking, I've pondered that quite often, because his logical skill set, his administrative capabilities, that there are so many strengths that he has.
Yeah.
Yet within a modern organization that has a leaning towards the importance of people, his people weakness against those other strengths will be the item, I believe, that will either create him a path to this role or not.
Well, you know that he like he's talking about your job, but so he's interested in promotion. He's interested in, sort of developing. So, the question is, he's got great skills. He's got incredible analysis skills and logic and so on. And typically to move to another level, which is an opportunity for him, there's going to be something. And it's like, so what might that something be? So that he sees.
That's a great idea, to actually kind of put the question back to him.
Briefly and concisely, because when you said what you said just earlier on, you might replay the video when you were saying what you'd said to him. It was quite wordy, and he's not wordy. It's almost like, so what's your career plan, Jason? Oh, well, won't be this, but couldn't tell you in 6 months' time. So what would have to happen for you to be able to tell me now? For example, it's like, how do you match his style?
Okay.
He doesn't fluff anything. He doesn't fluff around anything. So it's like fluff doesn't work with him.
No. I will think on that.
Yeah. Not
Certainly
to say
my
can't guarantee
tendency
it would
is.
work, but I think your tendency might be to sort of help him, like elaborate. But I don't think elaboration works. He doesn't communicate that way. It might be one of the things he might need to learn if he's capable of that. But
I believe all of my team have got the capability to learn.
yeah,
absolutely. I would never write anybody off.
right.
The differentiator for me quite often is the willingness to go through the self exploration to find things that you need to work upon and then address them.
Yeah.
And that is more commonly for me the differentiator for talent in an organization.
Or to find the things that you're capable of that you could strengthen and grow.
Yes.
That shift from talking about the problem state to the desired state.
Yes, I'm reflecting here now in terms of the language that we corporately use and our talent. We very quickly center around the things that need to be different in order for them to be successful, rather than to build upon the things that are great.
Yes. Yes. It's like, if you take the principle that we've got all the resources we need, somewhere he's got that resource. Somewhere he has it. It might not be applying it in, to the areas that he could at the moment, but he's got it. And it's like, how do you acknowledge that, find that, and look, hey, wouldn't it be great if you use that? How could that work in this situation? Because that would be such a help.
Yes.
As a whole.
For my next one-to-one with him, which is coming up on, I think, tomorrow, I'm going to practice those much more clipped and direct questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And, be prepared to live with the silence as well.
Mm.
I'll see if I've got the video of me talking with him, because I had to adjust quickly when I had that one-on-one bit first of all of the one-on-ones as well. But, okay.
Did you have a moment of, oh my God, look, if this is Nick's team,
Yes, I did. I thought, oh shit, this is going to be hard work.
moving away from like specifically Jason, he just naturally kind of came through. Other things to just remind you might be Joe was the person that I jumped past to get the job. So before I joined the organization,
Right.
he was the nominated successor. So
Right.
he's the longest served in the organization.
Yes.
Um, my learning with Joe has had to be turn off my desire or significantly adjust my desire to make him do things the way I want them done,
Yes.
and to give him huge amounts of space to be able to own and do things in his own way.
Yes.
And then I've taken my own personal responsibility to provide for and live with good humor the things that he cannot do well.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's been a very interesting learning process for me.
Yeah. He was he really acknowledged the shift in you over time. He said something happened to Nick, he said at the beginning of this year. He said, I don't know what it was. But it's like he flipped, and he was really
Okay.
impressed by that. He said it's like he said almost like I couldn't give him the time of the day before that, but then he flipped. He said, and it's just been, like a Nick 2, he calls it.
Back to the piece of making fun of yourself, I reference it back to the team of Nick 1.0 and Nick 2.0,
Right.
to kind of make the deliberate pieces in there. So if a meeting, for example, or a project, they are not taking the empowerment and owning a solution, I maybe say, look, guys, we don't need a Nick 1.0 stepping into this, do we? And they'll all giggle, and then they'll take it off and they'll fix it, and kind of like bring
Yes.
it back. So there's some humor in being able to deliver that.
Well, he certainly noticed.
Right,
Really. And
right.
really, he just freely acknowledged that. While she's on my mind, who's the other long-standing person? Is it Margaret? Margaret? Not Margaret. Who's the other really long-standing person who's done as much service as Joe? What's her name?
You had Celine,
No,
Kate, Caroline.
the oldest person, oldest woman. Oh God, I got the names.
Now you're testing my knowledge of my team.
Um, Let me just.
Yeah.
She's probably retire in about 3 or 4 years' time, I think. Who is it? Oh gosh.
Jennifer. You mean
Jennifer,
Jennifer? Jennifer Hewitt, the technical lead.
I think so.
I think that must be who you mean. Who's incredibly
Got
inspired.
very short hair.
Yes, she's wonderful, and she's come such a long way. A very, I I would say this if she was sat next to me now, kind of mad scientist approach to everything,
Yes.
able to juggle more facts and figures and moving bits and pieces than anybody else I know, a technical mastermind in terms of all of these different processes, but to be able to put that down on a simple slide and walk your average layperson through is almost like an impossibility for her. So we've been bridging that together. I love her to pieces. She's incredible, and she
Was she?
wants to build a legacy so that when she goes,
That's right.
she's able to hand over what
Yes.
she absolutely loved and cared for many years.
Yes.
She's got somewhere like up to 5 years or so, I think, to time it with her husband. But yeah, she's amazing.
Well, she's hooked. She got hooked on modeling. Something like the fact that others can learn to model hair. And
Yeah,
she's like, she said something like, "I want to pursue that." So it ties in absolutely with the legacy, but it doesn't entirely have to be with her to do that. It's for the people to be able to elicit the things she does and how she makes some of the decisions. So she really cottoned on to that's what this is about, modeling.
absolutely. And it was interesting for me that once the coffee breaks happened, the people who form the little pods to talk about what you were talking about versus the people who form the little pods to talk about everything else, the work type stuff.
Yes.
Uh, Jennifer, Celine, Michelle Quint, my chief of staff,
Yes.
and Caroline McKenna, they were quite kind of like, "Ooh, I'm interested." Niels kind of like came and went from that group
Yes.
as well. Whereas you can imagine that Joe and
Jeffrey,
Jason we're just like immediately off into their, yeah, so I've got 15 emails and I need to get those out in the next 10
I think
minutes.
the answer is you just need women in leadership roles.
I, it's a very blanket statement, but I have certainly used that to my benefit. A walk down memory lane here, just for humour's sake. It was around about the time that you and I first kind of started working together, and I inherited a team in manufacturing, and they hated each other, and it was full of guys, and there was so much arguing, and they really couldn't stand to be in the same place as each other. Deliberately, with my next two recruits into the team, I brought in two ladies.
Yeah.
One was of an Indian heritage, incredibly mothering, a real nurturing, kind of sweet-hearted lady. And the other one was a French ex-national gymnast who was incredibly attractive. And they joined the team. I kid you not, within a week, the whole team was going for lunch together. There is something magical about how you deploy the interaction of men and women in teams, and having the right mix is hugely important.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like I've got a very good mix on the team, actually.
Oh,
If
you
I
have.
stand back from it and you look at the cultural diversity, the style diversity, the
Yes.
gender diversity, the experiential diversity,
Oh,
it's
yes, it's massive.
wonderful.
It is. It's just rich, absolutely rich. But it was lovely, because it was great having that big screen just to see them engaging with each other. Because I didn't quite know. I talked with Michelle about. She said, "Well, what happens if somebody gets to talk to somebody that they don't talk to normally?" And I said, "Well, if they just talk to who's next to them, they're going to be sitting next to somebody that they do get on with typically. So we take that chance, and that it'll work." And they did. They just, we could hear snippets of conversation. And that was very important. That found that they were just engaging, with the brief, so to speak, when they went into those smaller groups. So that was tremendous to witness that.
There's one thing that you may not know, but this Michelle Quint, Caroline, and I were in a three when we were giving feedback on people, and telling them what we thought they were excellent at. And Michelle Quint didn't have a chance to tell us because we ran out of time. We got the most fantastic and detailed email from her the following day saying, "Hey, look, I didn't get to tell you how amazing you were, so I'm going to write it down."
Fantastic.
Just that really shows her commitment
Fantastic.
to the people
Because,
type.
sometimes when you do that and people run out of time, they just say that we ran out of time. You go, it doesn't have to be restricted to just a breakout session. So she's just taken that beautifully.
Just took it and said the most lovely things. Yeah,
Oh,
as well as
she came from a background of a lot of feedback, didn't she, where she was before? Very structured and very thorough and very constant feedback.
yeah, she's got a lot of runway potential in leadership.
Yes.
because of how she just embraces that continuous improvement
Yes.
piece in herself. So she's an amazing chief of staff. She was about to leave the organisation. Actually,
Oh,
I'd created a chief of staff role, and she was in commercial. They'd run out of opportunities for her, and she was set to leave on the Friday. And on the Tuesday, I knocked on the. So she'd accepted the other job with the competitor and everything. And I knocked on her office door and I said, "Hey, Michelle, I've heard great things about you and you've got no idea who I am. But from what I've heard, I think I might have a great opportunity for you." And we spoke 3 times during that week. And by the Thursday, she'd declined the job offer and came with me to Barcelona to meet the exec team.
fantastic.
So she's been a really wonderful addition to the team.
And I mean, I know she did enjoy it. And your other Michelle, because she's delightful.
Michelle Gallagher is wonderful.
Yeah.
She takes care of me in ways that I couldn't possibly start to list. I think she's got potential to go on and do more things as well. She's starting her journey on managing people, and quite a lot of the things that I've helped her with have been moving obstacles out of the way to make life easier for her, obviously, but just being there to listen to her when she says, "Oh my God, and this has happened, and now so and so's pregnant, and I've only just employed them, and now this person's done this," and just kind of helping her through that
Yes.
early journey. But she's coming on fantastic.
Oh, she's tremendous. And I hope, that because I think this came up in the one-to-one that she knows that, with her title, she can be seen as somebody that just makes appointments for you, that just takes messages sort of thing. But she's so much more than that. So to have
Yes.
had that acknowledged, and recognized, big, big thing for her.
Yes. And I think I'm probably the only person on the executive team that would have extended the invite to my uh, assistant. Yeah,
And I think that was so special.
it makes a difference to people. Everybody's coming in and working so hard. You know, they're part of the team, and if you miss that, I think it's a very foolish thing.
But so special for her to have that. Yeah.
I noticed in the meeting she didn't speak up very much. So although she's been invited, she still feels
Yeah.
less worthy.
Yeah.
That what she has to say can be put out there. So I do try and bring her into the
Well,
conversation.
I think that was a good step forward though for her to be there. That's a big step.
Absolutely, yeah.
Build on that.
So going back to this next steps piece, I think the email's a great idea.
Yes.
Um, I would even maybe suggest that rather than sending them all one on copy, you send them separately.
Absolutely. That was what I
Wonderful.
acknowledge them individually. I mean, it's about how to continue those themes that we started on this session, which is like people are individual, they have individual styles. It's unique. And to deal with them uniquely, I think is very important as a way of just carrying that example forward.
Wonderful. And then I'd be more than happy to consider for those that want to take it on personally and where you have the bandwidth to support, of course, that we can talk about doing something there. And it was such a lovely session into I could just see how everybody felt on the other side of it. And believe me, and you should take huge credit from this, that is not how people often feel when they come out of a training about style and anything personal in a group setting. Absolutely not. So, huge thanks to you for being able to do that. But I would like to try and find something that we could anchor on that would be a good team thing. And if we
Yes.
could plan to do that when you were able to join us face to face,
Yes.
would be delightful if we could do that.
It might be something, you know, because one of the things, this is just possibility, it might not be it, but it was very funny with Joe, you know, because he said, well, we have these, you know, 5, how do you call them, values.
Yes.
So I said, well, what are they? And he went, he said, well, one Zoetis, and he couldn't remember more than 2. I didn't say anything, but he knew, you know, he'd gone like 5 values. And I said, okay, tell them to me. He said, I'll send them to you. I don't think people know, you know, if you put those into the logical levels, I don't think they would say the same thing about what behavior demonstrates that you're living those values.
That is gold.
Exactly.
To actually kind of connect those core behaviors that we have with the logical levels.
Well, they're principles, they're not even behaviors, they're kind of abstract principles. And if you go, well, I'll know that we're living these because this is what people will be doing and saying, and this is how they'll be doing it. Well, then you've got a basis to say to somebody, well, to what extent are you doing these things? Because this is what living and being one Zoetis means. And therefore, where are the areas to develop?
Yes. I mean, one that I really like, but it's very difficult to nail down in terms of, well, how would I define when this shows up, is run it like you own it.
Exactly. I'm just looking for the list because I've got it somewhere. And I'm thinking,
yeah, but they are really
like
good.
Own it. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, I'll keep secrets to myself, and I'll cut the legs from under the competition.
Oh dear. I really like that because I've got a strong feeling that they would.
I could do such a provocative thing on this, you know, customer.
Oh,
so you're going to
could have so much fun. I think in order to do that and be really provocative, I think being in the room is like super important, you know, because at the end of that session, you get to just kind of like close down the Zoom link, and then everybody's sat there looking at me going, well, that wasn't what I expected.
Oh, it's you know, it's great having being on Zoom because I can pick on people individually. You can in person, but it's great, you know, because I can see them all, you know, their expressions exactly.
You just pick on a box.
Exactly. It's tremendous for that. It really is. Sort of theoretically, you can mute them as well if you wanted to.
Have there been times when I've wished that I could do that in real settings, but
yeah, I can just go, oh, sound's gone bad. Hang on, let me just reload.
You can't do that when you're in the room, of course.
No.
I really like that as a framework for a working session with the team.
Yes.
So I'll ask Michelle Quint to see if we can find a time when maybe it would work where you're able to join us when the team are together. Okay. That would be fabulous. Yes.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. And I'm planning to be down in France with you.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to make some adjustments to my calendar so that I can get down there.
Fantastic.
Maybe I'll go. I'm wondering if I get to bring my dog with me, you see, which would be a nice thing, but it's quite a travel. It's further to go than Oxfordshire.
Yes.
So I'll see, but that's in the diary for next year.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful. So one thing I did want to ask you before the call finishes, what things had you noticed about me in the call? Granted, I wasn't on my best kind of from a health perspective, but were there any things that you recall that I should take care around, or things that you saw that I did well? Just any feedback?
As I say, I didn't hear so much from you on that day, and it was appropriate not to. It was very much for them to be speaking up. So I'm more able to pick up the things like now, talking with you now, than to do with that time. I mean, they're obviously, undoubtedly, the things that I'm picking up for you now will be true in those settings as well. I don't, The one thing I regret was I think at the end, I don't think I asked you what your takeaway was from the session. I think I asked everybody else. And I thought, shit, I didn't ask Nick. And that was an oversight on my part.
That's okay, not a problem.
Well, no, but it would have been just put you in the same boat as everybody else, you know. So maybe there's some way to address that. I'm not sure. But I think it's these things about how you handle these individual styles. And particularly, I think this shift to desired state as opposed to problem state.
Yes, which is going to take some working at.
Well, yes, it would. Yes. It does for people who are a bit slow with their learning.
Does, and I'm a bit dim when it comes to that kind of stuff, as we've explored in the past. But at least I now know I don't need to try to do it. I can do it.
Either do it or not. You do it or you don't.
I may choose to think about it a little before I do it.
Well, that's a luxury.
Probably wise. It is, of course, you know. I absolutely loved what you came and did with the team. Thank you so much, Sue, for making it a really meaningful impact into my team and their dynamic, and giving them something personally that they can move forward.
And it was good. It was good. I had Chandan as a very key support to me. You know, he's in Sri Lanka. I mean, he wouldn't be able to come in person. Well, he could, but I don't think it's not likely. But he can give me very good sort of meta comments on what's happening. You know, so that's we had between. He's also great because he just does the stuff with the slides and things like that. But he, of course, he's so much more than that. His observation skills of people's behavior. And I'll ask him if he's got anything to add, because he does have remarkable feedback about people.
Yes. I mean, it's not completely untenable to bring him along to a face-to-face meeting, Sue. It's understanding what he does in the room, and the value that creates for me and you. So I wouldn't write that off.
Okay, that would be amazing, because the value of having somebody like him, like for example, he would join in with breakout rooms, and he can influence then the quality of how people use, you know, whatever, but things like clean questions and so on. But he's very, I thought it was interesting to have him there as another culture that wasn't represented as well. You know,
yes.
For example, in the Asian culture, it's not the culture to ask questions, for example, which is a challenge, how you handle that. But it was, I thought, oh, how interesting, because all your cultures are kind of, you know, the Western ones. And here's somebody from a very different culture again, who's learned a lot about adapting.
I completely agree. Completely agree. So I'll let's see if we can thread the needle on our diaries and plan to do something next year. It'd be nice to try and do it fairly early on. You off to
India.
India, which geographically is not particularly helpful for Dublin, but how long are you out there for, Sue, before you come back?
I'm back at the end of February.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can plan for something then. And I think it's important that we keep some momentum going on this space. So in the meantime, please reach out to them as we suggested, and then, you know, we can just find a path for those individuals that would like a little bit more support, for sure.
Yes, I think that'd be great. Yeah. I did ask them, you know, I said, well, you had an insight session, and I think somebody showed me the block, you know, with the colours. And I said, well, so what have you done with that? You know, what have you done? Well, I know this, because they know there's a difference, but they haven't worked out what to do with it, how to use it in relation to other people, I don't think. So I thought that's why I think the follow-up is so.
It's very true. So the style of that session that we did with them back in July to do the insights, everybody was put into themselves. It was the what am I learning about me kind of piece, the how I learn about others from this position of understanding, and how I adapt my communication styles. That's not really been covered,
and that's a key area.
So absolutely, yeah.
How do I? So here's So here's this person, what's key to them, all logical levels. So if I want to be successful with them and get a win, what do I need to do to connect with them?
Yes. I think people would be very interested in that.
Yeah.
Would be very interested in that for sure. And we may find at the right time, Sue, doing something that's maybe for the next leadership tier down as well. I don't want to make this an exclusive thing, for only the exec kind of team get to have all this wonderful insight, because I am very keen on making sure that the culture of the
Yes.
organization has these elements in it to
Oh,
live and
absolutely.
thrive. So that's something that would be interesting as well. So maybe there's, even as I'm talking now, we're planning next year to bring forward some kind of leadership programs that
Yes.
will have a whole host of stuff in, but your typicals are finance for non-financial managers and lean manufacturing practices and all of those things. But something that's in your wheelhouse, I think, could be hugely beneficial as well.
Oh, there was a tremendous program run some years ago. This particular one stands out, and it was for the next tier down. Because there was some real sort of dinosaurs in the top team as well. So that's not your situation, but they realised that actually it wasn't even worth investing in some of them at that point. They were getting on, so they said we're going to invest in the growth of the leaders for the future. What was interesting was that they asked people to apply to join the program. They had to be interviewed to join, so they had to want to be there, and they had to demonstrate they were going to really learn from it and get the most out of it. So it was seen to be quite an exclusive event, that, hey, if you go through this kind of discussion about this thing, that was enormous. And just the name of the company, it was a big electronics project company. They changed their name since, or they had projects all over the world. And that was how many years ago? Oh God, it could have been 50. These guys are in such key roles now, mostly in that organization and in others.
Yeah, yeah.
It's phenomenal to see, how they grew and they grew together.
Well, that's got me thinking. There's a book. Is it behind me? Yes, yes, it is. I remember reading this, must be about kind of like 10, 15 years ago, The Future of Management. And one of the items in here, similar to what you said, or got me thinking, is the company Gore, as in Gore-Tex.
Yes.
When people join that organization, they would send them on a rotation cycle through the business. So you'd go and do like 12 weeks here, 12 weeks there. And then at the end of it, if no teams wanted you, and you made this very clear at the front end, if no teams wanted you and you shook hands, you get a nice check and off you go.
I thought you could say if no teams wanted you, they made you an executive.
Yes, which many companies do that clearly. But here's the nuance that I loved was if a team wants you, that's great. You join them.
Yes.
If more than one team want you, then they sales pitch to the new joiner.
Wow.
And you get to choose which team you join based on which one gives you the best sales pitch.
Fantastic.
As to what value they see in you and what they could do with you in your career and how you'd fit in the team. I thought it was wonderful. I haven't quite managed to get that going.
Well, I'll tell you one other idea that's come to mind, which is something that I did with, oh God, there's so many ideas coming up. Nationwide, they had 5 values, 5 statements. And it was PRIDE was the acronym. So they would P stand, I can't remember what it was now, performance. And they would take one element, like the PRIDE, take the P, and they took one element to have a conference with, I think, everybody in the company once a year. And they would go, what does this stand for? And we did it for everybody together, discussing what this means for them personally and how to live it out and so on, so that they were intent on instilling these 5 principles in everybody. I mean, and we just did this massive interactions with people, you know, that was another thing about translating the values into specifics, but that was then had gone to the whole of the company.
It's great. I'm a real believer that people turn up to work and put their effort in because they're connected to the values of, and there's more in it than just I get a paycheck.
Yes.
And connecting more rigorously across all of those different behavioral levels into those values that the company have got. No, I'm not stupid. I know that some kind of marketing HR spin agent would have come and they'd have matched the feel of where they wanted the company to go. But I think
Yes.
you can hang an awful lot upon them. And the ones that are in Zoetis, they're not quite as pompous as I've
No.
seen in some of other organizations. They feel a little bit more real world, like person on the street, accessible. So I
Yes.
really like what you're saying because I think the bridge to connect to them, if there were some highfalutin kind of statements, is
Yes.
quite difficult for somebody to do from a
Absolutely.
blue collar, hands on perspective.
Yes.
But I do think there is a bridge to build there.
Definitely. Otherwise, these things just get stuck on the wall somewhere, and people
They
don't know.
do. I mean, GSK, MSD, they had amazing, slick value propositions.
Yes.
And then you'd walk into a meeting and it was an absolute shark tank,
Exactly.
and you were happy to get out with your life. Um, and yet, every town hall, the CEO would put up the values and all the rest of it. Well, everybody looks at it and goes, "Well, that's a crock of shit," you know. No,
I worked with one company, they had these values. One was like how welcoming they were and everything. And I walked into reception, there was a desk like the Berlin Wall, really. And it would have it had a sign there saying, "Today we welcome so and so, you know, today we welcome Sue Knight." I went to the desk and I said, "I'm Sue Knight." She said, "Who? Somebody expecting you?" I said,
oh God. Hey, I'm
yeah,
afraid
yeah,
time
it
has
is.
beaten us,
Yeah.
Sue. It's always a pleasure. So for me personally, the run up to the end of the year is quite fraught. Would you be open to me maybe putting something in January to connect again to talk about these
Yes.
the levels?
As long as you don't mind having to witness me with palm trees in the background and
I'm doing Christmas in the Dominican Republic, so
oh,
provided it's not too far into the new year, I'll probably be able to remember it.
yes, that's be absolutely fine.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Sue. Have
I'll
a
do this
if
draft. I'll do a draft, sort of generic, but I'll tailor it to people, and then I'll just run that by you and what I'm going to say.
I would have expected that anyway, even if you hadn't said it. So Jason's email will be like, "Hi Jason, what feedback do you have for me? Full stop."
Yeah.
Sue.
Well, yeah.
Have a lovely day, Sue. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Thank you very
Bye
much.
bye.